We wanted to send a message of love and solidarity from Beautiful Days with the Leveller's Blessing to Gaza, and Martin Goldschmidt, who from Cooking Vinyl, who you're going to meet now, was instrumental in introducing us to Julian. And we have Lizzie from the Exeter Palestine Solidarity Campaign. So 3 souls who are doing their best from their place, from where they are, for the cause of stopping the genocide and supporting Palestine. So can you put your hands together for our next panellist, please? Thank you. Come in. I'm going to moderate this discussion. So, thank you everybody. Julian, I just said, how long is it since there has been a non-Tory council?
Well, if I'm honest, it's only been about 16 years, but it feels like a lifetime.
I'm going to pass over to, initially we're going to ask Julian. I'm really grateful to Julian for coming here today, because there's particular types of crowds and particular types of scenes and all of that. So we really appreciate Julian's presence today. So Julian, can I ask you to open up?
Yeah, thank you very much, Glenn, and good to see you all here. So my name's Julian Brazil, and I'm the leader of Devon County Council. And in that position, first thing I'd like to do is to send a message of solidarity and peace and love to the people of Gaza, and all the suffering the abominable suffering that's going on there. And Devon County, as a body, as a corporate body, stands fully behind all efforts to try and stop the terrible genocide that's happening before our very eyes. So I'll say a few things. I'm not expecting everyone to agree with what I've got to say. Some of it is our party policy, some of it isn't, but I've always been very keen in my politics that you should just say it how you see it and say what you believe in. Not be tied by any particular party dogma. So my position is quite clear, and so is my party actually on that, is that we need to have a 2-state solution. And I applaud the government for recognising Palestine and to create that, to try and stop the 1-state solution that's happening at the moment. I'd go further than that. I think we should stop selling arms to Israel in whatever way. Personally, I find the arms trade abhorrent. If I was in a position, I'd try and stop it completely. I think it's terrible that as a country we employ people and we make money out of war and destruction and death, and I think that's something we should stop. As a politician, you get elected because you want to do things, you want to make things happen, and so if I was in a position to be deciding what we should be doing, I think probably the first thing is we need to have a regime change in Israel. I think we should remember that probably the majority of Israelis are actually as equally disgusted about what's going on, but they are being led by a particularly unpleasant government, which is in the thrall of right-wing Zionists and fundamentalists. And what I would like to see is that we try and generate the atmosphere where we could have a regime change and to actually marginalise the extremists on both sides, because there are extremists on both sides. I think, obviously, we know about what Israel is doing now, and the Israelis and the Zionists, but it is, like I said, it's a minority of them that are doing that. And likewise in Gaza, I think there are elements of Hamas that are equally unpleasant, and we have to call that out. And I think if we try and just vilify one side or the other, then we lose the opportunity to try and come up with a lasting solution. So regime change, marginalise the extremists, and try to bring about a lasting peace. I mean, we very nearly had it, I don't know, about 30 years ago, and unfortunately, extremists on both sides, Hamas with their suicide bombing in Israel, and the Zionists who assassinated the then Prime Minister of Israel, who was actually talking about a two-state solution, and that was tragic, really. To me, the whole thing is it's a failure of humanity. What we see in Gaza, and we all share some of the blame, because we've allowed the Israeli government and the Israeli regime to treat Palestinians as second-class citizens. And as a result, they have been the best recruiting sergeant for Hamas ever. And the idea that you can eradicate an idea by killing people is just ridiculous. So that's, it just saddens me that it's a sort of, I don't know, to me it strikes me as a bit of an Old Testament approach to a very modern problem, and we should be looking to find the consensus on both sides, and I think that's there, but unfortunately at the moment the people who wield the power are deliberately creating this schism and this polarization, and from my experience in politics, when you have that, you achieve absolutely nothing. So anyway, those are a few opening remarks. I'll hand back to Glenn.
Thank you, Julian, thank you. I'm going to pass over now to Lizzie. Lizzie, as I said earlier, Lizzie has been instrumental in the Exeter's Palestine Solidarity campaign. And as you'll know, all throughout the country, actually, there's been Palestine action taking place across the country. So it's significant that I think you guys are appearing here, because it shows a coming together of minds, doesn't it? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I just want to say it's significant that we're appearing, but it's actually because of you that we're appearing. So I really appreciate Glenn for inviting us to speak, and actually Beautiful Days, because it is so heartwarming to walk around the site and actually see Palestinian flags flying, because there's lots of festivals you go to and you don't see that. So big up Beautiful Days and Glenn. So, as Glenn said, I'm Lizzie Allner. The start of my relationship with Palestine was in the early 90s. I worked for Medical Aid for Palestinians, primarily in the West Bank, but also in Gaza too. I was a nurse with them. And at that time, I was living in Hebron, in Al Khalil. And from that time until now, I still have a very strong relationship with Hebron. If you visit our stall, that's a plug, I'm not hiding it. If you visit our stall outside, you'll see that we've got T-shirts for sale. Half of the price of the T-shirts is going to Hebron specifically, to an organisation that is also working in Gaza as well. So, that's my background with getting involved with Palestine. And in about 2001, I can remember doing a meeting at Exeter University, and we talked about the possibility of a boycott coming for Palestine, and it felt very much like it was a pipe dream. It felt like, will this actually ever materialise? And it's sad that we are now in the situation where most people know about the boycott, because it means that the Palestine isn't free, but without doubt, people do know about the boycott, and they do try to get involved. So over the years of being involved, over 20 years in Exeter PSC, we've seen people get involved, drop out again. People get involved, drop out again. But without doubt, now it's the longest and the broadest and the deepest activity for people, and it's absolutely exhausting. I'm not telling a lie, but obviously it's nothing compared to what is going on in Palestine at the moment. So it absolutely is now that people have to really dig deep and carry on and keep fighting for Palestine, because that's exactly what the Palestinians have asked us to do. So, of course, we will. So, in Exeter, we try and do a variety of activities. We want to try and make sure that every single person feels that they can do something for Palestine. We don't just want people to feel that they have to do one type of activity. So we have lots of different options. We've been doing a silent vigil for every week on a Wednesday, and we are this week on our 97th silent vigil. So people come along to that. We do little events. So we do stalls every other week. And each stall, we give out about 1,000 leaflets into the streets of Exeter. But then we do the big activities. Just last weekend, we did a red line for Gaza. So we had 500 people attached to a big red line, which was then marched through the city and to the Steve Race, who's one of the MPs for Exeter, who unbelievably still hasn't reached the red line that he can't cope with. So he still at this moment is absolutely 100% backing weapons being sold to Israel. So we took the red line to him to say, when exactly are we going to cross this red line? We do stuff like sponsored walks. And over the years, I think, but especially now, we've raised a lot of money for projects. We've also tried to really link up with the university, and Exeter University had an encampment, an amazing encampment over 50 days, and we, really tried to support the brave students who did that. That encampment finished, but the fight with the university hasn't. The university promised, as a result of the encampment, that they would investigate their investments and look at whether they were doing ethical investing, and of course that it's all gone silent. And not only has it gone silent, just a couple of weeks ago the university brought out new guidelines for protest, and get this, the new guidelines say that any protest has to be agreed by them. Not only does any protest have to be agreed, every leaflet that is given out on the campus has to be agreed by them. So we've got students working with us this weekend, and there are QR codes for a statement to the university. If you are able to go and sign the open statement against the university, that would be fantastic. We also have tried to think outside the box. So for 2 years now, we've marched with Pride, with a big No Pride in Genocide banner. We've had a Quiz for Palestine meeting, and just recently we've had a Devon Jewish Palestine solidarity group that is set up within our organisation. And one of the things that me and Martin have worked on a lot has a link to my friend Julian here, which is about divestment in the council. And a motion was put to the council a year ago, and was passed that the council would look at ethical investments, and as yet we're still waiting to hear. So I'm so pleased that Julian is here on the stage and has actually taken the decision to come, and because I think that's something that we really would like to see from the council, as well as, the council. Obviously, we've just heard Julian now giving solidarity to Palestine, and I'm really grateful that, and I hope that other members of the council might actually be able to do that. And just before I finish, I just want to say about how we work and how we manage to kind of keep the activity going, because it is tiring, but we're ferocious in our follow-up of people. So if people come to our events, they don't get away without giving us their names, their contact numbers. Do they want to get involved? If they do want to get involved, then we make sure they get involved. And that is really, been very important. But another way is linking up with local groups. So Martin and I have worked on lots of different activities. We've got groups now in Oakhampton, Bovey Tracy, if you're not from Exeter, don't just nod, because these are little tiny places around in Devon which have never had... Oh, what's that? Where? Bideford, yeah, I've got you on the list. So there's little tiny places in Devon that are springing up and going, do you know what? I mean, we love people coming to our events, but I get even more excited when I see people putting themselves and setting their own little groups up, because I think that is absolutely crucial. You organise within your community. So finally, I just wanted to say, I touched on it again, I think it's really difficult at the moment. We're fighting against the Israelis and against what's happening in Palestine, but we're also fighting a real fight against state repression here. I mean, we all saw what happened last weekend, where people were were sitting with a sign, and 500 people got nicked because they had a sign. The director of Palestine Solidarity is waiting to go into court at the moment. He was arrested for leading a march through Trafalgar Square. So on all fronts, we've got repression building. And in many ways, the UK is very toxic at the moment. My other hat is that I work for Refugee Support Devon, and so I work with refugees, and it really feels very toxic at the moment, where in the local hotel in Exeter we've got fascists who've come out for the last 2 weekends, coming out and standing against the refugees, and anyway. The problem is he's not actually stayed to have the debate, which I'd be really happy to have afterwards. But anyway. Do you know what? I'd really love to have a chat with you afterwards. Come and talk afterwards, because my experience of refugees and what I think your assumption about refugees is going to be very, very different.
I can hear the mic, mate.
So anyway. That was, yes, so I'm just saying that on all fronts we're fighting at the moment, and it is really knackering, but I think try your hardest to be seen, to be heard, to be active on the streets. And as I said, even if it just means you're wearing a T-shirt, you're wearing a badge, you're having a conversation with people, I think it's we've all got to really keep going, because the Palestinians, the situation is getting a lot worse, and it's something that every single person can get involved with. Thank you.
Thank you, Lizzie. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to pass over to Martin Goldschmidt, another Devon warrior for Palestinian rights, and then we're going to open up. I'm disappointed, mate, he gone actually, because I'm going to open up the floor for a few questions, and it would have been all right to hear what he's got to say, but he's got to go. Can I hand to Martin?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see this music festival. My day job is running a record company, Cooking Vinyl, which I've done for the last 40 years. I think we've got about 7 of our acts playing Beautiful Days today. But I've also got very involved in the whole Palestinian thing completely, well, for the second time round, completely by mistake. I'll tell that story tomorrow. But I ended up being the biggest music promoter in Palestine. I went over there first in 2015, and we did our first festival in the West Bank in 2017, and we had 25 Palestinian artists play, and we had about 5,000 people. We did another one in 18 and 19. In 2019, we actually took over Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols and put just Glenn together with a Palestinian rock band and did some Sex Pistols songs in the middle of Ramallah, which was a pretty special event. After that, COVID hit and we couldn't do any festivals, and we stopped, and then we were doing other things. But then in 2021, Gaza got attacked and many people got massacred again. It was horrendous, nothing compared to the scale of today. And so we started doing children's festivals there. It's a nightmare. I went to Gaza in 19 and did quite a lot of work with Palestinian musicians there, and that's how I got the relationship to be involved in music festivals in Gaza. With Hamas, music concerts are haram. It's very, 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 very hard to organise anything. We managed to get around it by doing children's music festivals, which, after they've been bombed, is really, really important therapy. I mean, the kids, you can't imagine the kids are a mess there. And it's a very small thing, but it's a significant thing that we did. We did 5 music festivals in Gaza between 2021 and before October 23 for children, which was an incredible experience. And as well as that, I was organising Totnes Friends of Palestine. And I can go into a lot of detail. We've been very active about the things we've done, but the main message I want to give is that there are massive connections between Devon and Palestine, and we're fighting to keep those connections alive, and we're fighting to do what we can to support people in Gaza, in the West Bank, and also Palestinians in Israel, the 48. And they really, really, really need our support. But the things we do definitely do make a difference. There's a group in Totnes called the Hands Up Project that work with children in Gaza, and they do live plays on the internet with kids in Gaza and kids from other countries. And they were doing incredible work before October the 7th. They kept that work going afterwards, and they were doing plays from the rubble with kids in Gaza, in Jabilia refugee camp. They had, we were doing meetings in Totnes, and they'd have people live streamed from the refugee camps talking in Totnes into our meetings and stuff like that. And they'd also live stream the events we were doing in Totnes back to Gaza. And it means so much to people in Gaza to see activity here and support here. It really, really, really means a lot. I can go on and on and on about the stuff we've done. We've done a lot. But the message I want to give is it's a long way away. It feels like you're powerless. You're not. Every little thing that we all do really adds up. And it makes that difference. And together we really can make a difference. And we've just got to keep on fighting. So on that, I'll open it up to questions. But thanks everyone for coming, and thanks Glenn for organising this.
What I was going to do, I was going to throw in a couple of moderator questions, take the opportunity, and then I'm going to open it up to the public. So there's one for each of you, really. So Julian, it's fantastic to have you here. And formally, to say the solidarity with Gaza from Devon through the council leader is a little bit more meaningful than just doing it from the tent without that. So thank you for that, Julian. A question I wanted to ask you was, Lizzie raised off, which I thought was a really important point, about BDS, about not doing business whilst with a genocide state, basically. And that was old hat back in the day, South Africa. It was a no-brainer. It really was. And that's what brought down the South African regime, the apartheid regime in South Africa. So what is your personal position on the council sanitising any purchases, any business, pensions, that sort of thing, Julian? Would you give us a shout on that?
No, sure. Thank you for that. I mean, as far as the council itself buying any goods, services from Israel, I would hope that we're not doing that, and I'm not sure that we are. I think where the main thing is about our pension fund. We have an enormous pension fund, and that is invested across the world. And it's fair to say, if I'm very honest about it, that some of it is probably not as ethical as it should be. We've only been running the council now for 3 months. My colleague Steve Lodge chairs the pension committee, and you can rest assured that we will be putting on as much pressure as we can in order to become an ethical investor. And so supporting the arms trade, supporting fossil fuels, supporting other regimes that drop below the standards that we would accept in a civilized country is something that we will do. I should just caveat that by saying that the pension fund has a legal duty to get the best return it can for its members of that pension fund. Can I just say councillors don't get pensions, so I haven't got a vested interest in that. But there are plenty of people who've worked in the public sector that do benefit from that. And so it's a balancing act there that we can't just completely pull out immediately things that we would like to do, because we've got to make sure that our return on the investment is good for those people who are members of that pension fund. So it's, as with so many things, it's a balancing act there. But I think I'm confident to say that as a administration, within 4 years, we will have managed to restrict any investments in unethical investments. Just finally, I just want to say on that, of course, the government has come in and has decided to amalgamate pension funds, so we're going to join up with become an enormous pension fund, goodness knows who with, which will make it even more complicated. But I think you can rest assured that from Devon County's point of view, we will be trying to hold the investors and investment managers to account to make sure they're investing what we want to see.
Martin.
I was going to add that we actually launched a national campaign about this, and the short version is it's not as simple to get divestment as people think, and there have been a lot of things that look great but haven't worked out because the funds have been attacked by Lawyers for Israel. But we'll give every bit of support we can to you, Julian, in trying to help navigate a minefield, because there's so many things that the government have done to make it very hard to divest. It's not as simple as it should be. But it's great. Julian, thank you very much for your commitment. Thank you.
Round of applause for that, I think. Yeah, thank you. Lizzie, can I ask you a question now? So, when you go out in Exeter generally, how many of Joanne public would you say are in support of the stuff you do?
I think it's interesting. When I came back from Palestine in 1995, most people didn't even know where Palestine was. And as I say, it's now that isn't in question. And our experience of running stalls on the streets is absolute overwhelming support, and I think we know that as well because actually surveys have been done, and over 50% of the population are absolutely wanting weapons being stopped being sold, and recognise that there's a genocide going on in Palestine. So we're way past that stage now. The point is that it's how do we make sure that the government realise that people of this country actually feel that, and that involves people of this country making sure that the government knows how you feel.
Thank you. And finally, before I come to the questions from the audience, Martin, one quick one for you here. When you've gone to Palestine and engaged with Palestinian artists and Glenn Matlock and people from Britain and the UK, when you took the artists from the UK, were they already really pro-Palestinian liberation people, or did you bring some people who opened their eyes?
I think everyone who goes there, it opens their eyes. I think they're always a bit sympathetic, but when you see things with your own eyes, it's totally different. It just, when you're just fed images from the media and stuff like that, it means one thing. When you see stuff with your own eyes, I think people's views have changed so much since the genocide's been live streamed. But I took Brian Eno over there. He was more pro-Palestine than me, I think, before and after. He's amazing. Glenn really changed, and it really affected Glenn very deeply, and it had a massive effect on him. It was, quite a big event in his life. It was fantastic. Also, we've got quite a few Palestinian bands on the label, on Cooking Vinyl. So please, please, please check them out. If you want to hear more Palestinian music, there's a fantastic Spotify playlist called Palestine Sounds. So if you go on Spotify playlist, Palestine Sounds, it's a really good playlist of Palestinian music. There's quite a few other great sources as well, and there's more and more coming through.
And truth be known, sorry Lizzie, but truth be known, we were trying, weren't we, Martin, to get some Palestinian music this year. We were just a little late, but we're making a mutual pledge here for next year, aren't we? Sorry,
yeah,
Lizzie.
I'm going to do my damnedest to get one or two Palestinian acts on here. I mean, we've put quite a few on in Totnes, and I've helped get them on at other festivals, but we'll really try to get something on here next year. We started a bit late, didn't we?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back very quickly and just underline what Martin had said about actually going out to Palestine and actually seeing for your own eyes, because there is not a single person that I know who goes to Palestine and does not come back and say, I need to fight for Palestine, because you can watch it on TV, but it is nothing to what it is when you actually see it. Now, obviously, at the moment, going out to Palestine isn't the safest thing, but I just want people to know it is something you can do in the future. There are loads of organisations working in Palestine. If you're local to Exeter, we have a links with Hebron, and they're desperate for people to come out and visit them. So it is an option for people.
And there's a flotilla if you're not too busy going from Bristol soon, I hear. I'm going to open up for questions to all of the panel. Who's first? Here we go.
Hello, I'm Chris from South London. A question for Lizzie. I was really inspired by the fact you gave that red line to your MP. Now, 20 years ago, you'd have tried to get that story in a local paper because there were local papers. How do you, now, certainly in most of Britain, there aren't any local papers. How do you advertise campaign stunts like that?
Shall I take that question now? Well, basically, it's bloody hard work, to be honest, because, years ago, we'd have our local press and the local TV biting off our hands to carry stuff, and they don't now, but we just keep badgering them. Frankly, we can write our own articles and give them a photograph, and sometimes they'll carry it verbatim, but it's social media. It's social media, and, young people are leading the way in sharing stuff. And, we've got 1,500 on our email list. We've got thousands and thousands on. We put that out, the Red Line event. We put it out, and within 24 hours, we had 5,000 views. And, so, I mean, that's the way that the message gets out, to be honest.
In Totnes, we've got... Our local paper does double-page features on Palestine. They are still in existence.
Yeah, they're lucky in Totnes.
And they are amazing. I mean, what can I say?
Question, anyone?
Hi, Steve from Leicester. I apologise, I came in a bit late as well. But how do you work out what is going on? It's so difficult for us as to the people from Israel and Palestine and what the balance is, because I guess the people are happy and they want to live together, but the politicians get in the way. So how can we change that?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely the right question to ask, because that's how I see the way forward. I think that obviously what's happening at the moment is disgusting, and we need to stop that as soon as possible. But I think in the future, we need to be able to bring together the peoples that actually want to live together and want to be and are quite happy with it. And we need to marginalise the extremists on both sides, because I think it's a mistake to just think it's the Israelis and what you see on the telly at the moment. It's like that, but. There are fundamentalists on both sides here, and they have had far too loud a voice. I think it's interesting, isn't it, that Netanyahu's policy of a single state has absolutely failed. But rather than to try a new path, he's just doubled down on it, supported by the right-wing Zionists that are part of his coalition government. And if that continues, there will never be a solution there. So we just have to hope, as I said before, I'd like to see a regime change, marginalise the extremists, and then get people around the table to try and work out, because most people just, they just want to live their lives in harmony with everyone else. Doesn't matter what creed or religion or colour or whatever it is. Most people, in my experience, are actually good human beings and just want to live together in harmony.
Can I just come back very quickly? Because I think that that absolutely is the ideal. And obviously, when I was there, I lived alongside people who in Hebron had Jewish friends, had, Christian, Muslim friends, whatever, years and years before, and could remember those days. I differ slightly on where Julian's coming from, because I personally think that it's going to be really difficult to do a two-state, solution, because I think anybody that's been in the West Bank and seen the horrific numbers of settlements that have gone up, I think that I absolutely agree that people need to, should be, we all dream that people are going to live in harmony, I think, but those Palestinians, the majority of them are now saying that to actually have a two-state solution, unless the settlements are dealt with, unless the refugees are dealt with, then it's, it's pie in the sky.
Yeah, as we were saying in the previous session, there is no two-state solution. The reality is that the vast majority of the Israeli population are extremists. They're not a minority. There was a poll conducted, I think it was in Haaretz, a Israeli newspaper, and 82% of the Israeli population, according to that poll, actually support the genocide, and indeed many of them indeed wanted to go even further. And this was borne out not just recently, but there's a film by Abby Martin several years ago, and she was vox popping people in Tel Aviv. Every single one of them was advocating genocide. So I think what is needed is a de-Zionization process, a unitary state with equal rights for everybody, and a de-radicalization, hence the de-Zionization process, a de-radicalization of the Israeli population in order to secure a sustainable and peaceful future for that region. But that wasn't the reason why I was going to ask a question. That was just in response to that previous point. I just think in terms of local government, I think there is a lot that can be done in local government. I used to be the leader of the council in Derby City, and the Derbyshire County Council used to be led by a guy called David Buckbinder, who was the epitome really of municipal socialism. And he was very clear about the role of elected members. Elected members are there to govern, they're there to run the authority. And I would urge every local authority, and indeed yours in particular, to consider twinning with Hebron, where you seem to have some good links, and I think that sends a very clear and important message. And if there's reluctance from legal officers, and there often is reluctance, and I used to come across this when I was leader of the council in Derby, and indeed David Buckbinder similarly when he was leader of the county council in Derbyshire, where the legal officers, where the officers in general didn't necessarily agree with the role or the position that we wanted to take politically, we'd go outside of the authority and obtain legal opinion from elsewhere to justify, for example, in this particular situation, the boycott, divestment and sanctions. I think that's really important. Local government needs to be at the forefront of this. We're not getting any leadership from central government. Local government, as used to happen many years ago, where Joe Chamberlain, the old Tory, but he was a very clear municipalist. It was local government that was setting the standard. I'm going back 100 and odd years ago now. And I think local government has the opportunity to set the standard in this particular area as well. So I think it's really important to be brave, not listen to the officers where they don't agree with your political position, and if they're not prepared to do that, as I say, go outside of the authority and get a legal opinion, which actually then give you the ability, the cover, if you like, to take the stand that you believe is the right one, moral one to take.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Paul, I've got two over here, but I've got first Martin. You good? Okay, one down here. No, that's it here. No, that's it.
Yeah, I was going to come back on public opinion in Israel because, I mean, I think the thing about two states or one state, we can have the debate here, but at the end of the day, for a solidarity movement in Britain, that isn't our argument, really. It's up to people, the Palestinians, to do about that. I think that what is interesting is people's the contribution there is saying it's difficult and confusing and all the rest of it. And I'd say, go and watch on the telly two things. Go and watch Louis Theroux's documentary on the settlers and go and watch No Other Land, which won the Oscar. And that shows very clearly what is happening in the West Bank. And if it's bad in the West Bank, it's 100 times worse in Gaza. Having said that, in Exeter, you know, we've got very close links with Hebron. We've worked also with a Israeli Jewish peace group called the Villages Group, but they are, and they will say it themselves, very marginalised and very much a minority. And public opinion in Israel has moved massively to the right in the last 30 years, so that most Israelis do want to actually basically expel the Palestinians. And we can see that's what Netanyahu is trying to do. So I think we should be, you know, have our eyes open. Obviously, we want to work with the Israelis who are against the occupation, and we do that. But at the same time, you know, we have to bring solidarity to the Palestinians, and that means trying to be outward-looking and trying to be active.
Oh, nice one, mate. Yeah, over here, Paul.
Sorry, I'm a latecomer, but I was listening to what you said about social media spreading the word. And I find that one lives in a bubble, that I assumed that everybody agreed with me that what was happening in Palestine was appalling and dreadful. And I've just met somebody here 2 hours ago, I've known him on and off for years, who started talking, I'm sorry to say this, about ragheads, and they're all terrorists. And you suddenly realise, my God, there are all these people that we don't talk to. And that's what I worry about, is the people we don't talk to and we don't hear from.
I'll just come back on that quickly, if you like. And that is a perfect example of why you need to be on the streets and you need to be visible. And not just in your little pockets of, you know, areas where you feel safe and you feel solidarity. You put yourself right into the middle of the streets, and then you can have those conversations, and then you can tackle those things, and then you can give the facts, and then you can actually work on the people. Because you're right, it's absolutely no point just talking to people that agree with you. You've got to know what the arguments are, and you take them on.
Thank you, Lizzie. What I'm going to do now, we're running down time now, so what I'm going to do, I'll ask each speaker, probably starting with yourself, Julian, if you don't. Hello? Yes, starting with Julian to make a final comment. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Glenn, and thank you for organising this, and thanks for beautiful days. I mean, it's a lovely place, and we're all very lucky to be here, and it's a wonderful experience. I just go back to my opening remarks about the idea that if we just add fuel to the flames of the polarisation in this kind of argument, we're not actually going to solve anything. We're just going to entrench people's positions even more than they are already. And I think that it's on us to make sure, as communities, as local council, to make sure that we do hear all the voices, as the lady says, and listen to them. I have to say, I'm not as pessimistic as the gentleman from Derby there. I do think that you know, our job as politicians is to make the argument to those that the idea that you can eradicate a race or an idea is a solution just doesn't work. And it won't work. And so we've got to bring together the moderates on both sides and make sure that they have our support. And, you know, we're talking about the getting rid of the Zionists. Well, you know, I mean, I'm sure there are more radical and less radical there. But I just think that if we try and do this as put it in someone's to blame, and they're the victims here, which obviously is absolutely what's happening in Gaza now with the civilian population there. We're in danger of actually just entrenching the position that they have. And so I think we must try and be more reasonable and speak to the moderates.
Thank you. Just for a bit of clarity, I don't think he was talking about eradicating a race. I think he was talking about an idea, as you say, you think it's not done, but a belief, a system of belief, you know, that, yeah. Martin?
I've been to Palestine about 15 times since 2015. And two things I'm going to say about that. The first is that my surname is Goldschmidt, and all the Palestinians there, I never see myself as Jewish, all the Palestinians there always do see me as Jewish. I've never had any problems in the West Bank or in Gaza. I've always been, really welcomed and never seen any racism at all. I think the situation is very different with Israelis because they're under occupation, and the only time in the West Bank you ever see an Israeli is when they're dressed in green and is a soldier. And it's in Gaza, I can't imagine how they feel, being kept in a concentration camp and consciously starved, bombed every night. And every time I've been to Palestine, the second thing I want to say is I've never known what the solution is, actually. I've always thought equal rights has got to be a key part of it. I've come to believe, over the years that Zionism is completely incompatible with equal rights, which, sometimes I thought you could have 100-state solutions so long as each state's got equal rights. I don't know what the answer is. But the one thing I do want to end up on is saying, please, everyone get involved. Please try to make a difference. Join your local group. In Totnes, we're very lucky. And I'll just mention, which we haven't mentioned before, that Palestine Action, I'm sure everyone knows, is now a proscribed terrorism organisation. We had 200 people on the streets in Totnes waving, I support Palestine Action placards, not last Saturday, the Saturday before. It was the biggest demonstration across the country where no one got arrested because we're a tiny place, 10,000 population, and we had, the whole of the centre of the town. People had Palestine Action placards and everything like that. It was really reassuring. So everyone, get involved, do what you can. People in Gaza, people in the West Bank, Palestine needs to be free. Palestine being free doesn't mean, it means that Israelis are free as well. It's not a negative for Israelis. It's not, you've got to see people as people first and not see them as the enemy because they're Palestinian or Israeli. But, the stuff you said about what's been going on in Gaza, I think if I was from Gaza, I'd have a big problem shaking hands with an Israeli person right now. So, yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but please, 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 everyone, do what you can, get involved. You can make a difference.
Bloody Martin stole my speech then. No. What I would like to say is that there is not a single person in this room or in this festival that doesn't know what's happening in Gaza. We know. We're seeing it, okay? The ICC, the International Criminal Court, has already said there is plausible signs of a genocide going on. We know that they're going to find definite signs of a genocide. We all know. So we can't pretend. And so when people are like, I don't know, absolutely not. We have an absolute responsibility. This is happening in our lifetime. We're watching it in horrific technicolor to do something. It is not an option to just shout at your TV. It's not an option to inwardly feel really upset about it. Tough. We don't have that privilege. The Palestinians don't have that privilege. So what I would say is, I would just underline what Martin's saying, is just by wearing a badge, just try it. I promise you, you put a badge on, people will come up to you and they want to talk about Palestine. Put a T-shirt on, people will want to talk to you. And if it's people who don't agree, brilliant, have the debate with them. If it's people that do agree, then fantastic. Tell them to go and buy a T-shirt and we're selling them on the stall over there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you to Lizzie, thank you to Julian, and thank you to Martin so much for coming to Beautiful Days Rebel Tent. Can we make some Rebel Tent applause, please, for the audience? Thank you very much.
Free, free! Free, free! Free, free!
Free.
From the riverway to the sea, he said.